Okay, so good morning, everyone. Here we are from Group A. We'll present the results of our discussion about fossilized allomorphy, false cognates, and other etymological pitfalls. So let me introduce the members of our groups. First, there are Ranida, Silvina, Lia Sabrina, Wahyu Putra, Sofia Nur, and Ahmad Zaki. Okay, so let's start the discussion. Next. Next. Okay. So one of my friend will explain you about this topic.
All right.
Go
Thank
ahead.
you, Zaki. Okay, everyone. For the first, we will talk about fossilized allomorphy. In this term of fossilized allomorphy, it can be deceptively unlike each other in form, yet they are historically related and they are cognates. And also, in by historical or fossilized, allomorphy tends to follow several general patterns. Familiarity with those can help us discern etymological cognates in spite of their overt differences. In this topic, there are two processors that will be held in this topic. They are gradation and rotacism. And originally, they affected root morphemes and occurred regularly in conjunction with specific grammatical changes within a parametric. Then we talk about new words that might be the unchanging in the fossilized allomorphy. Then, when we encounter an unfamiliar word, is to decide where exactly to draw the boundaries, if any, within that word. And often, or usually, a string of morphemes or words can be interpreted in more than one way, especially out of the context. And the placement of boundaries then will depend on what is on our minds at the moment. Yeah. So words can be placed by the boundary, and it depends on our minds at the moment. Or the greater familiarity of one interpretation over another. So, in our reality or in daily routine, and every day we face errors about the words, deliberate puns and double entendres we seek and hear in syntax. Maybe for the example, syntax and syntax, yeah. Ice cream and ice cream, like ice cream versus ice cream, slide rule versus slide rule. It might be the pronunciation is quite same. So we are difficult to difference each another. And next, here we also talk about mixed homophony, affixes and roots. Mixed homophony may involve different spellings, yeah, but identical pronunciation as polycity versus polymany. Yeah. We can list all variant forms that might produce the appearance of root affix homophony. For example, it go, yeah, um, The goal here in the context is itinerary, exit, initial, transit. Another example is it for adjective noun, posit, Jesuit, audit, hermit, and also. For the explanation, they may be pronounced and spelled in the same way, like ID, IT, I, it, I, par, etc. They may differ in the positions also, allowed for them in the word as ID, that one particular versus ID as suffix for adjectives and nouns. So that's all from uh, our topic. Next will be
All right.
will be present by myself, by my friend.
Alright, for this second section, me, Silmanata Iskandar, will be explaining about gradation. So, gradation in Germanic. Next, please. So, gradation in Germanic, a blot is a term characterizing the way in which the Indo-European vowels E and O once alternated with each other and with zero in different grammatical forms or word classes. So, there are some basic words that consist of one syllable, and these words contain a meaning, a basic meaning. Later, from this basic words, several new words will be formed, which will be grouped based on the existence of vowel E, O, or zero vowel. The allomorph containing the vowel E is described as exhibiting the E grade. The allomorph containing the vowel O shows the O grade, and the allomorph with no vowel in it is labeled the zero grade. Next, please, for the example. Yeah, for the example, you can please take a look at line 2. Yeah. English produced new words from the root word gen, which means birth, origin, into three words: genetic, gonorrhea, and cognate. Genetic belongs to the E grade, gonorrhea belongs to O grade, and cognate belongs to zero grade. So you can spot vowels E and O in grade between G in I'm sorry, in E grade and O grade between G and N, and in zero grade there is no vowel between G and N. Next, please. Quantitative gradation. So quantitative gradation happens when short vowels alternate with long or reduced vowels to produce paradigmatic and derivational allomorphs. For example, stand with its past tense form stood. Such is also the historical relationship between sit and stood, and also read and write. Next, please. Sophia, would you please turn? Okay, thank you. For the next section, I will be talking about gradation in Germanic context. So, in the classical languages in Germany, gradation often signals change from one word class to another. It also regularly accompanied paradigmatic change. The major function of gradation within the Germanic languages is to mark person, number, and tense of a large class of verbs, and traditionally referred to as strong verbs. Without familiarity with the phonetic changes from Indo-European to present-day English, through Germanic, Old and Middle English, the original E, O, and zero grades of the verbal allomorphs are not recognizable today. So we have come to label these verbs as irregular. Okay. So that's all from the second section, and the next section will be carried out by Zaki and Brina. For Zaki and Brina, the time is yours.
Okay, so for my part, I will explain about rotacism. So, rotacism is a psychological term coined on the basis of the root rho, the Greek name of the letter and sound rho. The term describes the change of the consonant through its voice counterpart z to rho when paradigmatic alternations place s between two vowels. Rotacism is found both in words of classical origin and in Germanic words, though the conditions under which it applies are slightly different. Next. Ro- So we will see the application of rotacism in Germanic. Voicing of S to Z, and a subsequent change to rho in a vocalic environment could also occur in early Germanic, where there were additional prosodic conditions restricting the process. As with gradation, subsequent phonetic processes in English have eliminated or greatly obscured the results of Germanic rotacism. Some pairs of cognate words which preserve traces of this ancient allomorphy are the past tense forms of the verb to be, was, were, and the present tense and the adjectival participle of the verb lost, learn from earlier Lauren. The last is the historical relationship between rise and tear, sneeze and snore can also be traced back to rotacism with some additional changes of the vowels. Next, the next set will be explained by Saki. Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to explain about rotatism in Latin. So in Latin, rotatism accompanied the addition of full initial suffixes such as is, a, to words ending in a full followed by s, producing the sequence VSV flanked by vowels. The consonant S was subject to a weakening of its consonantal nature. First, S was voiced to Z, and subsequently Z developed into the sonorant R. The process accounts for the allomorphy in pairs such as os mouth, gen, oris of the mouth, rush the country, gen, oris of the country, opus work, PL opera guest, beer carry, verb career, term, but gesture bearing. Historically, the appearance of a rotazide or an irotazized form was predicable, as changed to R in VSV sequences. Otherwise, the S remained unchanged. Next. Okay, so the next is metathesis will be explained by one of my friend.
Okay, for the next section is metathesis or transposition. Next, why we have to learn about metathesis? Metathesis is responsible for some speech errors because there are many people who pronounce the word different with supposed pronouns. What is metathesis? Metathesis is a process by which neighboring speech sounds change place in the chain of speech, also defined as the transposition within a word of letters, sounds, or syllables. For example, ask instead of ask, concentration instead of concentration, sir instead with sir. Next, the use of metathesis. There are two uses of metathesis. First, we can find out why there are differences in the pronunciation of sounds in a word. And the second, when we talking with someone who has a different pronunciation of sound in a word, there will be no confusion and miscommunication. It can go smoothly. Next, how metathesis can be happen? There are three factors. First, slip of tongue. For example, cavalry, calvary, Aaron, Aaron, and the second, many variants of original word. For some speakers of English, the word us is pronounced us. And the last factor, children's speech. Animal, aminal, spaghetti, spaghetti. Next, example of metadata berantas, bantras, jalur, lajur, kepala, kenapa, kedelai, keledai. That's all for this section, and we'll be continuing with my friend.
Thank you. Um, Mastery of the rules of allomorphy still leaves a residue of obscure cognates by obscure. We do not mean words whose etymologies are unknown or disputed. Thus, we can't even begin the discuss. By obscure, we mean that the formal relationship between the allomorph has become non-transparent, or that the semantic and logical link between the two allomorphs can no longer be reconstructed. An example of phonetically obscure allomorph comes from a small number of roots of classical origin, such as spec, flag, fact, nick, and lick. They undergo simultaneous deletion of the vowel of the following velar consonant k and h. When followed by the verb forming suffix y, verbs formed in the way are spy, ply, defy, deny, and rely. Next, and then another examples of etymologies are quite numerous. The very first root list in the Indo-European roots section of the American Heritage College Dictionary is the root example to drive, draw, and move. The root is phonetically and semantically transparent in act, aglic, getic, ambiguous, and intrasic. Somewhat more complex, but still possible, is the phonetic connection between it and the derivatives axiom and on and cocaine. However, without the help of the dictionary, one could not guess that easy, embassy, and even squat belong to the truth phonetically. And some example of unpredictable allomorphisms such as shear, curve, core, mean that round or around, circle, curves, and carnage, and then click, cliff, clean, mean that lie, bed, lean, clinic, decline, inclination, pro, proclivity, and then cup, come, mean that lie, hollow, in incubate, recombine, succumb, and then die, diff, mean that gut, auxiliary, deity, deism, divine, divinity. And then don, that, dot, door, dos, dove mean give, like dinar, data, anecdote, Dorothy, does, and Doiker. And then the last is fit, id, ned, mean she, like evident, ideal, and then eidetic. Next. Then the next will be presented by one of my friend.
Okay. For the next section is homo homopony in roots and affix. Root and affix homopony sounding alike is another potential source of confusion. Due to root or affix homopony is easy to avoid if one is already familiar with a parsable word. No one will associate the trait of with the care of people's feet or the care of autonomy with a facility for children. With homopony, art is as in artistic versus as in arthritis, aus, ear, as in oral versus aus, oral, as in toilet, cave, take, contain, as in cell versus it, articulate. This food information is in inside versus sit, citizen. Male as in virility versus vir, as in virulate virus. Then the other is alphabetical root list where only the homopony of is evident as vir, male, and vir, poison. For example, seed put in motion has the element seen as in kinetic cinematography and shift as in TV. The root bit foot has an orbital, pedestrian, and podium are clearly related. The homogeneous pet has no allomorphs and it can be spelled pet. That's all for this section.
Okay, and then the next is affix homophin. Full affix homophin is rare than root homophin. For example, the most frequent meaning of the prefix con is jointly or together, but it also means all together or completely. And in that second sense it merely intensive the meaning of the root to which it is attached. Thus, con plus rub is mean burst or become unsound, turns into corrupt, which does mean very unsound, but has nothing to do with togetherness. Next, the, the prefix dis mean apart or reversal or lacking. In distance, disseminate, disallow, disparate, disrepute. In and in disanun, disgrun, disrupt. However, in the meaning of the prefix is simply more. For example, it is an intensifier. The prefix in for can also be used as intensifier. For example, infallible, infallible, do not object that are very convenient. resistant, very flammable, very valuable. And then the most conspicuous symbol of prefix homophones come from prefix which have an intensifying meaning in addition to their other meanings. Next. And then phonetic rules and homophone. Like root homophone, affix homophone can result from one of the phonetic. The example below, there are instances of and drop, prefixal assimilation, vowel drop, as well as homophone without homography. The affix to the right of the arrow is the following set are homophones. Next, uh, next, and this is the examples. For example is N for not. Example is agnostic and then amoral. And then eight tutor words like scribe of venue of offense and ever. And then on you can read by yourself. Next, please.
Okay, so the next topic I'm going to cover is about pseudo suffixes. So, in a simple way, we can understand that the term pseudo suffixes as it happens when someone did a misinterpretation or misanalysis in a language, no matter how well educated they are. For instance, I'm going to tell you a very famous story which to you may still not be familiar. It's about the story of the burger. So, the ground meat patty sandwich or burger was originally called hamburger. Next, please. Hamburger steak after the German city of Hamburg. English speakers misinterpreted speaker the first syllable as ham as in food. Then they removed ham from hamburger and left the burger part looking like a separate recyclable unit which develops a root meaning, a sandwich. We now use it as a suffix that carry information about the ingredient of the sandwich like double burger and triple burger, cheeseburger, steak burger, fish burger, oyster burger, and veggie burger. And for the other example of these pseudo suffixes is art, plaster, cast, and holic. Next, please. Semantic variation. So polysemy is one phenomenon of semantic variation. Polysemy, or the existence of different meanings for one and the same word, sometimes results in the separation of homophonous words, as in the case of art skill and art with H segment, but more frequently various related meanings continue to reside within the same form. For example, the root archeo, which means foremost, begin, and rule. We can find these rules in words like archaeology, archbishop, archetype, matriarch, archipelago, and architect. Knowing the range of meanings of archeo helps us to detect the common semantic denominator among them. However, it is useless to do such meaning analysis if it does not reveal the overall meaning of the word. For example, archaeology archaeology is not the study of ruling systems, and matriarchy is not the beginning of motherhood, and archetype is not a domineering type. The next slide will be explained by Zaki.
Okay, thank you. So the next topic is multiple derivatives. So multiple derivatives are multiple meaning. So this section addresses the possibility that two suffixes with the same grammatical meaning can attack to the same root and produce two different words. Let us look at the two frequent adjective suffixes ic and al. So they can be added to some roots twice. Compare diabolic versus diabolical, problematic versus problematical, rhythmic versus rhythmical. In this example, in these examples, the stacking of suffixes with identical grammatical function doesn't seem to affect the meaning of or usage of the words. In other side, the IC or ISO variants have the same meaning, but one of the forms is used more commonly: academic, angelic, ethnic, iconic, semantic, symbolic. On the other hand, radical, conical, critical, logical, vertical appear only in a form with ical. So adjectives ending in ic are easily converted into nouns: academic, cynic, logic, tropic, while the corresponding adjective ending in ical are mostly used as adjectives like cynical, epical, logical, tropical, etc. Finally, there are some word pairs in this set where the IC versus ICO distinction is both formal and semantic. So, like comic versus comical, or economic versus economical, historic versus historical. And those are the examples. Like the first one is all, as it can be adjective or noun, versus tions as a noun. So the word is social versus association, and then proposal versus proportion, and then all for adjective versus aus as adjective, factual versus factious, official versus officious, and so on. And then IC versus all. The words are dialectic and dialectal, generic versus general, and so on. And then IT as noun versus ness as noun. So the words are community versus commonness, nicety and niceness, and so on. Yeah, so next. Yeah, so the next will be explained by one of my friends.
Okay, so for the last topic is multiple affixes, same meaning. As noted in chapter 5, the meanings that affixes carry are not specific. Affixes are subject to semantic bleaching. The more general the meaning of a phoneme of a morpheme, the more likely it is to overlap the meaning of another morpheme. Thus, ape, kata, apo, de, and x are all used with the meaning away. Affixes from different classical sources might also be near synonymous, thus multi, pan, poly, mono, uni, dis, mal, mis, b, and d. Finally, there are synonymous pairs where one of the items is from Greek, while the other one comes from Latin. Hemi, semi, or demi from medieval Latin and French, hypo, sup, and hyper and super. Next.
Okay, so that's bring us to the end of the presentation, and I sincerely appreciate your attention today. If you have some questions, you can ask us personally outside of the firm. If you like more information, you can read our main book. So thank you. Yeah, have a nice day.